they shift the nature of the conversations to this, from what's wrong and who's to blame to the gifts that people have. The gifts, the talents, the skills, the expertise, the resources, what do people have? And so we don't come from the perspective that here's what's deficient. Yael, you're a problem to be solved. Versus saying, Yael, you're a possibility. Two different conversations, two entirely different conversations, two different narratives. And the actions the follow-up actions are entirely different. Now, when I'm talking to an older group typically, I say, what if you walked into a parent-teacher conference and the teacher said to the parent that maybe your child is there and says, your Johnny is a problem to be solved. How do you think the parents, this is rhetorical, the parents are going to respond by kind of getting defensive, by kind of thinking, what? They know what Johnny's up to, they get that. And so the conversation is different than if the teacher said, your Johnny has all these incredible possibilities. Let's talk about those. And let's talk about how as a team we can pull those out and maybe help Johnny realize some of those possibilities. And guess what? Along the way, you also talk about some of the areas that Johnny needs some development in, right? It's an entirely different conversation. You draw out the generosity. Statespeople draw out the generosity and the goodwill of people. Because everyone, I'm convinced, and I have a lot of history and a lot of experience with what I'm about to say. The vast majority of people are waiting to be needed. I don't care who they are. And I have a lot of experience with that from the job I had and from other things that I've done in my life. But the vast majority of people are waiting to be needed. They're waiting to say for their relevancy. Now, maybe they shouldn't. And we're going to talk about that in some of these other classes. I don't know if we're going to talk about it in these first 5. But there's a reason why people wait and kind of stay in the background off the radar screen. And it's often because the people who are the leaders, not layout say, but the leaders say, we got this. You're a problem anyway. You're messy. We got this. Go sleep. We're going to take care of all this. That's what the current model is. The current model in leadership is you need to have the answer. You need to have the answer. We teach an entirely different model. And that model is, what questions can you ask that can draw out of the people their sense of commitment, their sense of accountability, their sense of maybe what they're limited by in terms of the box they're residing in. And so what can you draw out so that people themselves want to take action? Because you're going to find as you go along that most people are waiting to be needed. And then they're also really good at discussing, as I said before, the future. They don't get hung up on the present. They don't get hung up on the past. They're really focused on the possibilities these possibilities that transcend all of our old stories and all of the stories we tell about community, the stories we tell about other people, the stories we tell about the problems or the organization. You often find that those are the nature of conversations. And the statesperson begins to talk about there's a future that can transcend all of that. There's a future that can transcend our failures. There's a future that can transcend our successes. And so that's what we teach as well.